Ferguson, Hickory Lane. As a Weston resident, I too was shocked and disgusted by the tragedy that took place in the town of December. None of us will ever forget the heinous act of a madman that caused so much pain to so many families by committing cold-blooded murder. There's no doubt the safety in our schools should be a paramount protection to Weston residents, and protection of the children should be given the highest priority. I am a huge proponent of any measures that can be taken to ensure their safety. However, we must be able to distinguish between meaningful actions that actually increase safety and measures that merely give the illusion of safety to make us feel better. After the Newtown shootings, my understanding Chief Trotzel requested budget for additional 3 officers in order to partially increase protection at our schools. I believe he was only granted 1. He himself stated...
Those budget discussions have not taken place yet, so
Okay.
He hasn't been granted anything.
All right, I was at the police commission, they were talking about a new officer at the school. So, he himself stated at the commissioners meeting that budgetary headwinds are always an issue. And in the town of Weston, if safety is our primary concern, then I think we have the key expert here to deal with safety in our schools in Chief Trotzel. And I really think that budgetary issues should be at least put on the back burner in the face of increasing safety in our schools. However, to address the safety issue, the board decided to go and seemed to go in a slightly different direction and focus on firearms. The board felt so strongly about the mere presence of firearms, of legally owned firearms in a town, to propose one of the most strict ordinances in the entire country. This is a town that has virtually 0 violent crime rate over at least the last decade based on statistics that I've been able to come up with. Considering the easily anticipated opposition to something this significant, I'm sure you would all agree, I'm sure the board did not take this decision lightly. In fact, all 3 of you voiced unanimous consent at the meeting 2 weeks ago. Unfortunately, I think that this is likely an overreaching firearms ordinance that may have been initially drafted or conceived more out of the personal positions of the 3 board members on gun control, rather than any clear and present danger represented by lawful gun owners in the town who have already
Hold your applause, please, so that Mr. Ferguson can get through his statement. We have a lot of people that want to speak tonight, and I don't want to have to limit the amount of time that we have allotted for this.
Thank you. Than any clear and present danger presented by lawful gun owners within the town that had already undergone FBI background checks for the purchase of their firearms, or had already gotten permission for pistol permits from Chief Trotzel. It's good to hear that, Dennis, that you agree now that the registration component was somewhat troublesome. I think that component in and of itself, firearms aside, really bifurcated our town residents into a group of firearms owners and non-firearms owners. I know you don't understand my position here. I explained it to Gail the day that the ordinance came out. But if you have a police force that is informed as they're going to a house for a domestic disturbance that there's a firearm in that house, that policeman can't possibly put that information out of his mind. He has to react differently. You'd expect him to act differently. What if he gets a call that there are not 1 firearm at the house, but 4 firearms at the house? What about 40 firearms at the house? That's like an APB going out on a town resident that has not done anything. But all of a sudden, the police officer is required, almost can't possibly prevent, acting differently in that case versus a neighbor that might be different. I'll try to speak up.
I'm going to ask you to just wrap it up.
Yeah, I will speak up.
Thank you.
The board's consistently shown that budgetary constraints are part of virtually every decision that they make. As a Weston taxpayer, I thank the board for your usual fiscal restraint. However, in supporting this ordinance, it was most stringent in the entire country. The board seemed to ignore any concern for the cost and legal liability that you're imposing on the Weston taxpayers. By proposing this ordinance, Weston was put on the national radar map on gun control. It was no accident. Several of you stated this was a goal. But foreseeing the possibility of multi-million-dollar lawsuits, I think should have been easy. As taxpayers of the town of Weston, I believe we should be outraged that both boards showed such disregard for the financial risk and national attention that would materialize by proposing this ordinance and potentially damaging the town's reputation. There are issues.
I'll give you another half second.
Okay. In my personal opinion, this is not why most residents in Weston elected the three of you to the board. This is an issue that traditionally is left to the state and federal governments. I know you're not happy with what's happened at those levels, but proposing an ordinance that had some constitutional issues was questionable.
Okay,
Historically in
thank you
this
for your
country,
comments.
reckless politicians have been far more dangerous than legally owned firearms.
Thank you.